Welcome everyone. Happy that so many people were able to join our webinar today. Just before we start, I want to mention that this webinar will be recorded and available later on our homepage. So whenever you want to watch it again, feel free to do so. Also, in case you have questions, please use our chat function, and I will try to keep an eye on it, and will ask also our speakers later on in the Q&A session. About our agenda. So first of all, I want to thank our sponsors, which are Wandgrün and Dachgrün, Sempergreen Vertical Systems, and GreencityWALL City. Thanks to them, we were able to give this webinar for free today. About the agenda, we will first have a short introduction and then dive further into the benefits of green walls, about the placement and checklists, the standards, the techniques and best practice examples of many different systems, maintenance, and finally also some fire protection information. And in the end, there will be some time to ask questions to our speakers and discuss it in the big round. Also, I want to introduce the EFB. Who are we? The EFB is the European Federation of Green Roof and Wall Associations, founded in 1997 as a non-profit organization. It is the umbrella organization for all green roof and wall associations in Europe, and currently we're counting 15 national associations. And all of us follow the same goal, which is to make cities greener and promote the topic of building greening. And we strongly collaborate with different networks, and also want to educate people by offering such webinars as our webinar today. And today's speakers are two representatives of German-speaking countries. First of all, we have Felix Mollenhauer from the German Association of Building Greening, and Elisabeth Kruchmann, who is working for the Innovation and Research Lab Grünstadt-Grau in Austria. So this was a warm welcome from my side, and I will hand over the word to our speakers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Isabel, and thanks for the invitation that I can be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Felix. Yeah, let's dive directly into it. I want to start with the effects of facade greening. And in Germany, we always do some general aspects, positive aspects of facade greening or building greening topics, which are heat precaution. We have a reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. We have preservations of biodiversity, which are coming with building greenings. We have a bit of loot prevention, not that much for facade greening, more for green roof topics, but with the right systems for green facades as well sometimes. And we have other well-being aspects which are going on with that. We have cost savings and profit. And then we can, next slide, please. We can do some splitting up of these good examples. We have also cooling effects through the evaporation with the green walls. We have increased yield from photovoltaics. So if the photovoltaics are in front of a facade greening, we can increase their yield a bit because of the evaporation effect. That's not much, but 1 to 2%, which is at least a bit. We have heat and cold protection, which comes with facade greening. Carbon dioxide storage and sink, I already told you. Ecological compensation, which are going on with that, especially when it comes to fauna and flora. We can increase fauna and flora with facade greening. We have a bit of a rainwater retention, especially when it comes to ground-bound greening. Binding dust and pollutants are another positive effects. We have noise protection. There are also some systems in the market which have these as a main aim for their systems, to have green walls directly in combination with noise protection. We have improvement of living environment, as you can see on this slide here. It's always better to look on something green than on a gray facade or a white facade. Protection of the building envelope are also really interesting when it comes to cost savings. So normally you have to renew your facade after 20 to 30 years. That's not the case not always the case when you have a green facade in front of it, because it can prevent for weather extremes or UV radiation, for examples, and so the wall can hold a bit longer. Next slide, please. Yeah, when you want to have some values for all these positive effects, you can find these in our brochure. So Grün statt Grau has a brochure which includes the positive effects about building greening, and it also includes facade greening, and we as BUGG as well. We have also a facade. You can find this on our websites. They are for free. Just download them. They include all the positive effects we found out within research projects here in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And yeah, for the square meter of a facade greening, we got asked by the Facade GmbH, which is a manufacturer of lemonade here in Germany. We got asked if we can give them a picture about the positive effects of 1 square meter of facade greening, and you can see this here on the right side. There are all the values you can also find in these brochures. So, but here you have a picture for that, or about the square meter of green facades. This is also a really interesting part when it comes to heat. As you can see on the pictures, they present made with a camera of a wall, which shows the facade without greenery, where the heat was 42.4 degrees, and you can see here on the same wall, but with a greenery. In this time it was a ground-bound greening, so with climbers, but the heat was only 28.2 degrees. So it's a difference of 14 degrees. It's a lot. This shows how also facade greening can cool not only the wall itself, but also the area around it. Yeah, when it comes to planning, it's really necessary to know what do you want to have with your facade greening, with your green wall. What do you want to reach with it? Often a goal is to have a low maintenance. We hear this really often. It needs to be green, but not having to do any work. I can tell you now, every green facade has to do some needs some maintenance. You can't just leave it itself. So sometimes it has to be cut back. This can be an low maintenance. There are systems in the market which have lesser maintenance than others, but yeah, this is an aim. Another aim can be to have a certain vegetation. If you want, for example, an evergreen facade, so that you have also a green facade in the winter, then you can use a few plants. Another example is that you have a great variety of plants, then maybe it's only possible with summer green plants, but this is also an idea. And the last possible goal could be also in certain usage. So as you can see on the picture is in the middle, there the excess water of the green roofs goes directly into a cistern, and from this cistern the water is used for the irrigation of the green wall, so that you can use your rainwater twice. This is just an idea for to do more with your green facade. Yeah, why is it needed and good planning to avoid these kind of pictures, as you can see here on the right side? These result in wrong planning, that you don't have the right combination between your facade greening system with the facade construction, for example. It could be incorrect installation of the facade greening system, incorrect coordination on the construction side, who is involved in which process. Poor quality of materials could be possible, for example, when it comes to the wall mounting systems. No maintenance plan or wrong or insufficient maintenance can be other issues within such green walls. Yeah, standards and guidelines. I can't tell you all guidelines we have in Europe, but for us, it's in Germany, it's the FL Fassadenbegrünungsrichtlinien, which contains the definitions of facade greening. We have legal basics, types of construction are involved. Decision-making aids could be also very useful. Types of greening on how they are planned and how they are constructed. And in Austria, we have the Ö-norm. I don't know really much about it. Maybe if you asked Elisabeth after the presentation, maybe she could tell you a bit more about it. But it was published in 2021. Its first green wall standard. Greening goal was between the client and the contractor. It includes the typical vertical greening constructions and gives a guideline about the maintenance. And also included in the annex is a coverage rate of greening and in maintenance form. Okay, that's it for now from my side. Then I will hand over to Elisabeth.
Yeah, welcome from my side. When you start your greening project, it's important to consider some factors, which are, for example, radiation, the wind, the rain, and according to that, you also have to choose the system factors for vegetation, substrate, or the layer construction. And if you coordinate those factors, a sustainable and high performance green building should come out. And also the water management of the building can be improved by that. Maybe a short checklist when you start a greening project on the wall for the facade. You have a look which space you have available on the ground for roots, or if not, there are systems where you can provide this space for the roots. Then in general, the space, also the usage, what's the goal of the greening you have. Of course, the owner situation. You need the approval of the owner or of the owners when there are several. Also the availability of water and electricity connections, and also the statics. In some historical towns, like in Vienna, where we are based, it's the monument protection, or there are sometimes also historical protection zones where you have to go to the city department for the city appearance. Also the fire regulation, the exposition, also the accessibility, especially for the maintenance, important. Then the penetration of the building, like regarding cables when you are using climbing aids. And some places might have vandalism going on, so there you also have to consider while planning if any construction prevention is needed. And of course, last but not least is the budget, considering the construction, but also very important budget for the maintenance. Now I hand over back again to Felix.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's the same, so you can go a slide further. Okay, now I want to present to you the different systems of facade greening. So first of all, we do a differentiation between ground-bound facade greening. So maybe they are better known as typical climbers, and then the newer system, which are the wall-bound facade greening. So these are not older than these 15 years. And now we do a separation again for the ground-bound facade greening. We differentiate between self-climbing plants, so self-climbers, and we have scaffold climbers. And for wall-bound facade greening, we differentiate between horizontal greening and vertical greening. And then we have let's say, in combination of both. These are the drought-bounded systems, but Elisabeth will tell you later on more about drought-bounded and the wall-bound facade greening. I will go on now with ground-bound facade greening and what planning aspects they need. I will start with the typical description of the self-climbers. So as you already heard, the structure is without and climbing at with contact to the ground. So the plants grow directly out of the ground and they don't need a separate construction to climb on. So they can hold themselves directly on the wall. So typical plants in Germany and I guess most of Europe are the EV, which is an evergreen plant, which is used really often because it's getting really big, up to 500 square meters, one plant. And we always often use also, I don't know the English name, I guess in Germany it's wilder Wein, maybe it's wild wine in English, it's Paternozus. You can see it here on this picture as well. And that's a Sempergreen plant. So this is one way to differentiate EV and this plant because this is has a different optic over the year. So it gets beautiful red, for example, in autumn. Maintenance is low, but you have to cut it back if it's growing in direction you don't want it to grow. The problem with these plants are that they are growing negatively phototrope, which means their plant organs like to grow against the light. This means if your facade has some joints or holes or something like that, they like to grow inside of that. This means you shouldn't use these kind of plants everywhere. For these concrete walls, it's no problem because they have no joints or holes, but other wall construction might have this. The costs of these systems are pretty less because you only have the plant you have to grow. So it's around 10 to 50 euros per square meter, at least in Germany. Then we have a ground-bound with climbing at. I see the text is wrong. This facade greening means ground-bound with climbing at. So they need a separate climbing structure, these kind of plants, to grow up. Maintenance is a bit higher than for the self climbers because you also want to have an optical effect here. Special effects are also in the evaporation capacity, and we have a really high biodiversity, not only with the fauna but also with the flora, because you can combine different plants with each other. Usage, that's another good point of these facade greening systems. You can use almost all wall constructions with this solution. And costs are approximately between 100 to 250 euros per square meter. This depends a lot on the separate climbing structure you're using, the climbing at. Some climbing at aids need more material, others need less. So this is the result why there is a bit of a gap. Yeah, and then we do a differentiation again on the self-climbers. We have root climbers like ivy. He likes to form roots along his shoot. I guess it's shoot in English. which width it holds directly on the wall. And the Virginia creeper or white vine, for example, he likes to form such adhesive disc. It's like little frog feet with which it holds on the wall. And the scaffold climbers we separate in looping and winding plants. So these are, for example, wisteria is one. These are growing directly or winding directly on this climbing edge. So often used for these kind of plants are rope systems, for example. And then we have climbing plants, and they form shoots or leaves or petioles with which they hold on the climbing edge. As you can see on the picture, clematis is, for example, one plant which is typical for this. And but last but not least, we have straddled climbing plants, and they prefer more horizontal lines to hold them. Typical examples are blackberry or climbing roses. To the combination of facade greening and wall constructions, we have a lot of wall constructions, so I want to show you just two. Typical is also in solid construction, which is made out of concrete walls and or masonries, for example. So this means you have the solid construction directly in front, and after this is then the thermal insulation, so there's no problem with the facade greening itself. You can combine it with all kinds of facade greening systems. Doesn't matter if it's ground bound or wall bound facades. Please go on. A bit more difficult is it with thermal insulation systems. On the thermal insulation systems, you have the solid construction, and in front of the solid construction is the thermal insulation. So we often get asked if it's possible to combine it with facade greening. Yes, it is, but not with self-climbing plants like EV or white vine, for example. Not that it wouldn't work, but they are too heavy for this small layer in front of the thermal insulation. So the layer wouldn't hold these plants, so it would get broken, and you don't want to have your EV grow into the thermal insulation. This wouldn't work out. So better not combine it with self-climbing plants. But all other facade greening systems are possible to combine with thermal insulation systems. That's not a problem. Another planning aspect is the growing characteristics. Here on 3 examples for self-climbing plants. On the left side, you have Hedera helix, which is EV. This likes to grow more V-shaped to the top. Then you have 2 types of Parthenocyssus, which is wild vine. We differentiate them in Parthenocyssus tricuspidata. This plant likes it to grow more horizontally. And the Parthenocyssus quinquefolia, which is almost the same plant, but it likes to grow more vertically. This is interesting when it comes to you want to combine more plants next to each other on how far the distance is between the plants. So when you have a Parthenocyssus tricuspidata, for example, you don't need or for Parthenocyssus quinquefolia, there is lesser distance than for Parthenocyssus tricuspidata. And here's noch 2 examples for Parthenocyssus again. On the left side, you see this typical red color of this plant. And on the right side, not even that the older building is much more beautiful than the newer ones next to it, but it also got greened, and only with 2 plants, which almost fill the whole facade. So it's not more plants needed in this case. And you also can use Hedera helix to your buildings, but please check beforehand that solid construction without any joints to avoid this picture like in the right. If you have some joints or holes, these plants like to grow inside. When it comes to climbing aids, we have 3 different solutions in Germany. We have hanging systems. The advantage of hanging systems is that they are very versatile applicable, but the disadvantage is that you have many wall mountings because the whole weight of the facade greening or green wall is directly on the wall itself. So it needs to be calculated beforehand on how much wall mountings are needed. Then you have the standing aids. Advantage is here that the load is carried over in foundation, which results in lesser wall mountings itself. So you need lesser for that. But disadvantage is of course you need a foundation, and this could be a bit more expensive. So you have to calculate this as well. And the last one, which is used really often because it's affordable and visually appealing, are the stretched systems. Often these are rope systems, but the problem is with them, you can see it on the picture, they have really few wall mountings, so often you can only use lightweight plants with this kind of climbing aids. Okay. Then we always recommend you, because of the wind attack, to use or to green your face flat. It's always easier because you don't need that much wall mountings, so the system will hold itself most of the time. If you want to have some single structures for greening, because you want to have an optical effect or something, then the recommendations are to not have a height more than 17 centimeters for the single line, and that the depth from the wall should not be higher than 50 centimeters. This can be a bit more after a vegetation period, but should be cut back within the yearly maintenance. Okay. Yes, here you can see a typical green facade with summer green plants. You can see over the year they have a different effect on the wall. In spring they are more flowery. In summer they have this typical green hue, and in autumn they get more orange. And here in winter, of course, they have no leaves. Also, the most of the plants you can use for this climbing ends are summer green. But this don't have to be bad, because in winter it's not long. The night is long, so you don't have that much light, and so the rest of the light gets into the interior. The planting area, I just want to tell you that the planting space must be at least 0.5 square meter. This is interesting when it comes to the irrigation of the plants itself, to give them enough space. And the rootable space should be at least 0.5 centimeters deep and at least 1 cubic meter in size per plant. Okay, when it comes to the height on the climbers you are using, please make sure to use the right plant for the right building, because we have plants like Efeu or like Ivy, which is Hedera helix, or Wisteria, which go up to 30 meters. You shouldn't use them really on your single family home, because the maintenance could be really high. So make sure to use the right plant. For example, you can use Rosa or Jasmine or Rubus if you want to have it edible. These are some other points, but we have good plant lists in Germany. So we can send it to you if you want to know which plant you can use. Yeah, and to finish this, here you can see a few examples we have here in Germany when it comes to the combination of plants with climbing aids and wall construction. You can always find the right solution to green your building with ground-bound greening. That's it from my side for now, and now I will hand over to Elisabeth again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. So when it comes to the drought bounded green wall system, It's kind of a mixture of ground bounded, but also wall bounded, depending of the available space. And just to inform you that the most common mistake is that that you're using normal soil from the not supermarket but from the building market. So it's very important that there are special or layers to have a long-term successful greening within your drought. Maybe you already have recognized it when you in autumn, when you removed the plants or when you were pulling at the plant, it came out very compact because it was so tensed. So it's very important that you are using mineral substrate, similar like for green roofs in these droughts, because roots need air. They need also the water retention, which you can also improve by adding water retaining materials such like geotextile or perlite, for example, you see on the left side. And the layers are quite simple. You have a drainage layer where you can store water. You have a filter layer to avoid washing out very fine materials which are from the substrate. And if you want to avoid water diffusion, you can also add a mulch layer. Of course, it's also important to have a point where you where the water can when there's too much water, that there's a point that it can run off. Roots they don't want to drown in the water, so too much water and too less water are bad for the plants. So and regarding the drought, you have to consider or use materials which are resistant for heat, frost, UV, also the root pressure and corrosion. Also use plant-friendly substances, and of course the static requirements should be also fulfilled by the material. And regarding, here's an example for a system which is used for greening up facades on the street side in Vienna, which are also connected to subsidies. Here you can see it's a drought which has like 300 liter for 2 climbers to reach up about 7 meters, so that you can green up to 8 square meters. But it's like 250 liter per plant you have to plan that the drought volume has to have for the plant. Another example is like when you don't have space on the streets, you can also use, for example, in Vienna, there are a lot of cellars which are not used. but all the infrastructure, for example, for the irrigation, the water and the electricity are available. So this is, for example, an innovation workshop result we have done in Vienna, where we put the droughts in the cellar, and the plants are growing out from there. If there's not enough space on the ground, you can go up with the droughts, and that's the thing where it's getting also up on the wall, and so we have wall-bounded facade greening systems, which are in droughts or horizontal or also vertical. So regarding the wall-bounded horizontal systems, as you can also see here, it's like a shelf design without any contact to the ground, and the vegetation can be with perennials and small shrubs and climbers. The maintenance is medium, also depending on the chosen plants. You can, of course, have a nice optical design possibilities with that kind of system, and also the biodiversity and the evaporation capacity is increasing. And the costs are starting from 150 euro up, depending on the size of the project and also the materials and accessibility of the facade. Then here you can see an example. Here you have the droughts, also considering the winter aspect and the summer. It's in Vienna, the University of Natural Life Science. And then we have the wall-bounded vertical systems, also without ground contact, and they are fixed on the wall. Also using perennials, also partly wooden plants, and self-seeding plants are possible vegetation for this kind of system. The maintenance is medium, and you can do really great plant paintings, let's say it like that. You can have a great visual effect or design with the plants. So you can have a living graffiti on the wall to write your design of your company name or whatever. And it starts with 400 euro per square meter, and it depends really on the size, on the accessibility, and if you need to install water or electricity, which is needed for this kind of systems, or if it's already available. So sometimes it's very individual aspects you have to which makes the costs. To make it a bit clearer to the wall-bounded systems, you have this kind of linear or horizontal or cascade systems with substrates, filled with substrate, or you can also have this like all over the wall systems, which are all over filled with substrate, or fleece or mineral wool or other materials are used. So when we have a look on the cascade or linear systems, they kind of are a additional insulation layer for the facade, because it's an air circulation system between the existing facade and the green wall. And all these wall-bounded systems are irrigated automatically, and also the nutrition supply system can be integrated into the irrigation system, or through the maintenance with some depot nutrients added for this kind of linear systems. The water reservoir and the retention is at each level. The layers are also like similar to the green roof or the drought layers, which we saw before. And the drains and overflows, because it's a cascade system, avoids that there's waterlogging in the system. And of course, you can have many visual design options with using different plants and blooming plants and grasses and so on. And the trays where the plants are sitting in can be made out of different materials like fiber, cement, or aluminium, like we have here on the right side, metal constructions, etc. And you can see here on the right the irrigation system, where each line has its own irrigation line. So, for example, how can this kind of installation look like? We have this very gray facade at the beginning on the left corner. Then there's this under construction for this for the system. You can also add insulation additional. And on the right side, you see this, it's modular and it's already installed. You can see some of the substrate already filled in. And after the planting, on the left side, you see how it was handed over. 1,560 plants were set. So it's a west exposed facade, and the aim was to improve the biodiversity and have a meadow, vertical meadow for butterflies and bees. So the choice of the plants were for very insect friendly. So we have plants like Eichemia, Allium, Begonia, Geranium, Dianthus, etc. Also some grass. And the maintenance for that kind of wall is like once a year in the spring, where they come with an elevating platform and cut the plants. And of course, during the year, the irrigation is done automatically. And yeah, and you can see here some details when it's blooming, and it has a really nice effect when you drive by. And the maybe one plus point for that kind of system is that in case when you're using self-seeding plants, they find the substrate and can grow and seed themselves. Here it's a different project in Vienna. It's southwest exposed. It is a building from the 60s, and through the renovation they added the green wall as an insulation. It's 850 square meter of green facade, and on the right side you can see even in the winter time it has a really nice texture, and it's kind of a green dress, or in the winter then a brownish dress, where you can see the Archemia, oregano, Nepeta, dianthus, etc. On the wall. And it's always kind of, sometimes it's quite pink because of the blooming dianthus, then it's very blue from the Nepeta, Fascini, and so it's changed its appearance during the day, during the year. Yeah. It's another example for a green wall system filled with substrate, which you can. So some systems can be also implemented or like built self-standing or freestanding. So some system providers also offer this kind of possibility when it's not only when you don't have a wall to green up, but you want to set up a wall, but a green wall, like here on the right side in the corner, like for your privacy. And then you can see here how it's installed, where the plants are growing like in 90 degree, and you have a very nice and diverse aspect of the green wall, and not only on small projects but also on really big projects. You can see how it kind of adapts to the landscape, and can cool down the also big buildings, also the industry, which is in my opinion still very behind in greening up their production buildings and so on. Industrial buildings can be also green. It's not always gray. And coming to another type of wall-bounded systems, where the plants are also 90 degree to the facade, are this kind of systems can be also modular systems, which are filled with substrate and or any like mineral wool or something like that. And when they are modular, they are often pre-cultivated. So as soon as you have the greener has finished his work, you have already a completely green covered facade, which kind of can be an argument for the high costs. You don't have to wait so much or so long that it's going to become green. Yeah, depending on the systems, you also have this air circulation system between the wall and the model. And again, there's automatic irrigation and nutrition supply systems. And different design options. So how the construction can look like? Here you have an installation on steel, for example, but you can also install it on insulation. On the left side, when, for example, the statics are not very, so you can, if the facade can't handle the weight, you can also install it with self-standing constructions, which are a bit in front of the facade, and you can use some anchor points against tilting, so it's not that it's fixed. And and then you see the models, which are pre-cultivated models, where you can see how green it is, and as soon as it's finished, it's already a fully greened up facade. And here you can also see different. On the bottom, you can see a hotel in Vienna, which just got a green facade. Also remember this kind of steel construction between and the windows, which we will explain later. Also, what's the meaning behind that? Also, public spaces can be greened up very easily, and you get kind of a jungle vibe. How you can and it's very comfortable to walk by. Also, here you can see the biodiversity topic, which was added here, and also strawberries and campanulas and so on were added to this system. And also winter aspect is very nice. So as I've mentioned before, for this kind of green wall system on the wall bounded systems, regarding the fire regulations, which are quite strict in Vienna, and we do a lot of research in Vienna and some other cities in Europe. We have here this kind of protection shields, which have the function that the fire is not getting to the next floor, and also the distance between the roof and the wall must be like 1 meter. So regarding the fire protection, I hand over again the word to Felix.
Yeah, thanks, Elisabeth. Yeah, fire protection, it's a big topic. I guess next time we have a seminar for this topic, but I want to show it to you shortly because it's pretty heavy. At the moment, especially in Germany, we don't have really rules on how to install facade greening correctly so that it's fire protected. This results that facade greening is not a building product within the meaning of the building regulation, which are in Germany the Musterbauordnung. It gets complicated here in Germany when it comes to buildings higher than 7 meters. So then you have to check if all the facade materials are used, not the plants itself, because they are not a building product, but all the other constructions like climbing aids or the wall mounting systems. So they should be fire protected in some way or the other. We make their differentiations between buildings 7 to 22 meters and much higher buildings. So the regulations are there different. But yeah, we're doing a lot of tests now, and for buildings up to 7 meters, there is often a test made for this kind of facade greenings. You can see one on the right side where there's a test of the creep spindle, which was made for my colleague Julian Noda, and it looks pretty bad on this on this example, but it was a positive result because you can see here there's this triangle on the right side. So after 20 minutes of fire, there was no, you can still see the rest of the green facade because there are still vital plants, and so the fire wasn't going on. This results in that there were some recommendations on how to install the facade greening. You can see this. Next slide, please. And see this, for example, in the middle picture. There's always space over a window, which is around 1 meter. So this is a recommendation to leave some space because most of the fires are coming out of the building, for example, from the kitchen or something like this. And so that the fire doesn't get directly on the plants itself, there is this space between. What also helps are early coordination with authorities and the fire brigade. You should do this from the beginning on, so they can tell you what could be done. Then facade greening staggered by story. Also in the middle, you can see this, so that you don't install the green facade all over the facade. Greening free distances from opening, I already told you. This could be also possible on the side of the windows for 30 to 50 centimeters, for example. But these are no rules. These are just a recommendation at the moment. We are trying to work on rules, but we are not yet done with this. What also helps are these fire barriers Elisabeth told you already about. You can see it on the right picture as well. These could be helpful when it comes to wall mounting system, not for ground mount with climbers, but for wall mounting is pretty effective. And of course, try to use flame resistant to non-combustible climbing aids or fleece substrate systems. You can always ask the manufacturers for their system if that's the case. And a really important point is limiting the flammability through plant vitality. This means try to have the maintenance of the facade as high as possible, so that the vitality of the plants is really good. So the more dead parts of the plants you have, the higher is could be the fire. And then from time to time, especially on wall-bound facades, they install area-wide irrigation systems that also triggers in case of a fire, but these are not always installed. Good, that's in short for the fire protection. Then let's finish this with care and maintenance. Try to do regular visual inspections and check for cracks, check for material fatigue, pruning, sensitive areas, and growth limitation and management. Removal of that wood, I already told you, and wild growth. For wall mounting systems, it's needed that you're doing watering, fertilizing, so check this as well. And only if necessary, you need a replacement planting, substrate replacement from time to time. It's maybe possible needed, and cleaning the materials when you have climbing aids or these wall mounting systems, that it looks good. And then we have the successful green wall. How do you reach this? First of all, try to involve the manufacturers and greeners from the beginning of the planning process. They know the most of their system and how and what is possible with it. So always contact them first in the planning process, of course, the landscape and maybe high building architect is involved, static, engineer, and building physics could be needed. Installation later on is then the gardener, facade engineer, and metalwork involved. And for maintenance, then the gardener again, and maybe facility and residence. Yeah, that's it from my side, from our side, Elisabeth. And now I would like to hand over to Isabel because we are done. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to both of you. I think we got a huge load of information. And before we go to the Q&A session, I just wanted to inform you that we already had a few seminars about green roofs and green roofs so far. So if you want to listen to them, just check them out on our website, and they're still available. And yeah, I think now we can hand over to our Q&A session, and I will start with one.
Just one announcement, because fire protection, fire regulation is such a high ask topic, and together with Felix and with Book and Grünstadt Grau and other and some guys from Switzerland. We are in a working group for fire protection, where we have a regular exchange about studies and where to and what kind of studies should be still set up and so in autumn, there's not the date. The date is not now fixed, but in autumn we have someone from Book, like Julia. She's leading and organizing this working group, and also one guy from the City Department of proofing and certifications, and he is doing a lot of fire studies and also fire studies on green roofs and green walls, and he will be one of the speakers. So stay tuned. Also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter to or have a look in our calendar on the website to so you don't miss the date. And now I think we can go to our Q&A session. We are already a bit ahead of time, so and some of the questions are already answered, but some are not yet. So
I think one question that we can answer right away is, are the green facades most of the times west-oriented? Does it depend on the plant selection?
So it's the most effective way of have this natural shadow is, of course, west and south exposed facades. Maybe that's the reason why it's very common to implement it on that kind of on that side. But for example, on the north side, you can use Hedera helix, the ivy, and with a special eye on it. So I hope was this the full question, or
does it depend on the plant selection?
Yeah, it's always you have a thing you have to consider in your planning, that depending on which side of the house you are putting the plant or installing the facade greening, you have to admit you have to use different plants. So, example, the ivy is more on shadow places, and there are some which can really handle well the very south exposed wall. So it's and of course when you are deciding on the plant selection, of course the exposure narrows down your choice of plants, but you can also think about if you want to have a special blooming effect, or also the leaves of the plants are also a kind of design element you can use. There are some who have really thick and bigger leaves, and then there are some really small, and some of the plants are also in wintergreen, which are in the middle of Europe, only a few, so in Germany and in Austria and so on. It's the choice of plants which are also green in winter are very poor, unfortunately. So when you're going down more south, the choice the choice will be bigger, and because we are handling a lot of frost, and that's the main issue for the plants to let go their leaves. And of course, you can also, if you want, implement the usage of eating. So you can also grow your vegetables wall-bounded, vertical. But you can also use climbers like the real winery plant, the Vitis vinifera, or the kiwi, where you can use the fruits and eat them. So you can also implement that kind of aspect to your plant selection. I don't know if Felix, you want to add something, but I think
we have another question regarding maintenance. If it's necessary to regularly replant to keep it working.
This depends, first of all, on the usage of the plants. So it could be possible to not to replant, but to cut it back to its original size, because a few plants, especially climbers, like to only get green on the top, and on the bottom they don't get green anymore. So it could be helpful to cut them back from time to time after a few years, but not to replace them. And for wall mounted system, because of the weather conditions, it could be possible to replace a few plants which can't which haven't survived the winter.
Okay, thanks. And another question about irrigation. Do all the systems have independent irrigations, or are there also experiences with gray waters from buildings?
So normally ground-bound greening don't need an irrigation. But if the building is over the ground-bound greening, sometimes architects like to do something like that. Then, of course, you have to install an irrigation itself. And gray water usage is at the moment, as I know, possible for a few plants. So, but there are some research projects on it. I can't tell you now if it's really working.
Okay. Do you want to add on this, Elizabeth, maybe? Or?
Maybe I can add a link to a research institution who is mainly or focused on greywater recycling or circular, including green walls.
And then one last question. How about the bugs and other insects near the windows? Are there any concerns?
Not from
So
my
the
side.
main thing, yeah, it's always get the people reconnected to nature. For me personally, I'm happy when there are bugs and insects outside of my window, because then I know the implementation, the ecological circle, or is getting closed. So, of course, some people are afraid or have a bad interpretation of bugs or insects. But if you consider you people enjoying the sound of or the singing of the birds, but what do the birds eat? So it's like we need the insects and the bugs to have also the birds in the city. And of course, the main aim for the insects is to pollinate and not to go inside and become a new flatmate for you. But in case, for example, I consulted a museum where they are very strict or worried that with the green wall, bugs are coming and might destroy something with, or might do something with their collection of animals which they already have. So of course you can also like implement a net in front of your window if this is a thing that you are afraid of or you want to really avoid. But with the plants, you bring life back into our cities and also the biodiversity. And yeah. So don't leave your steak or something next to the window so the wasps are not coming.
Okay, so I think
one more question was also about the maintenance costs. Or have you already done that?
Yeah, I answered that.
Okay. Maybe it's like for example the wall one wall bounded system I showed you in Vienna. They with this 850 square meter, they have costs for this square meter for 10 euros per square meter per year, because it's like kind of a vertical garden. So compared to that, it's like a park maintenance work. So it's because it's very easy to access, to get access there. For other parts or for other objects, for example, when you need a facade climber, the costs will rise, of course. And depending on the plant choice, you can higher up or lower your maintenance cost. So be aware of what you are planting, and then you can save money for later. Work and money.
All right. I think we answered all the questions. Thank you, Felix and Elizabeth. And I think we will come to an end. We already extended a little bit. So I want to thank everyone for joining, and especially also thanks to our sponsors again, Dachgrün, Sempergreen Vertical Systems, and greencityWALL. The recording will be available on our homepage as soon as it's ready, and I hope we see you soon in our next webinar. In case you have any questions, also please don't hesitate to contact us anytime. Thank you for joining.